The bathroom door at Graceland stands between Marion Koch and the sound of labored breathing. She knows that sound, has heard it every night for 6 months. Her hand hovers over the doorknob, but she does not turn it. In her pocket, 3 small white pills that could change everything or nothing at all. Behind that door, Elvis Presley is dying, not the sudden death the world will read about tomorrow. The slow kind, the kind that takes pieces of you night by night until there is nothing left but the performance of being alive. Marion checks her watch, 2:47 in the morning, August 15, 1977. She makes a decision that will haunt her for 40 years. Instead of opening the door, she walks away. People think they know how Elvis Presley died. They think they know when. August 16th, they say, found on his bathroom floor, prescription bottles scattered like confession. But Marion Koch knows the truth. She watched him die every single night for 6 months before that morning, watched him rehearse it, perfect it, plan every detail like he planned his concerts. The worst part was not the dying, it was what he made her promise to hide. For 40 years, she kept that promise, kept the recordings he made in the middle of the night when the pain became too much to hold inside, kept the letters he wrote to his dead mother, kept the medical files that told a different story than the one the world decided to believe. Most of all, she kept the secret of what Elvis asked her to do if she found him dying. Not to save him, something else, something that goes against everything a nurse stands for. Now she is 78 years old. Elvis told her to wait 40 years, said that was how long it would take for the world to be ready to understand that sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is choose their own ending, ready to know why the king of rock and roll spent his final months not trying to live, but making sure he died the right way. This is not a story about addiction, not about fame destroying another star. This is about a man who discovered something so devastating about his own life that death became his only way to protect the people he loved. January 1977 changed everything. The call came through Baptist Memorial Hospital in Memphis at 11:30 at night, not through normal channels, through the private line that only executives used. Marion had been working cardiac intensive care for 15 years. She knew every important family in Memphis, but this call was different. They needed a nurse, not just any nurse, someone who understood discretion, someone who could work nights, someone who could handle what they called a delicate situation. 3 hours later, Marion stood in the foyer of Graceland. The house felt like a mausoleum decorated for a party that ended years ago. Christmas decorations still hung in January, gold records on the walls catching light from chandeliers that belonged in a funeral home. Everything preserved, everything dying. Vernon Presley, Elvis's father, met her at the door. His handshake felt like an apology. Behind him, a man in a white coat who introduced himself as Dr. Nick. She recognized the name. Every medical professional in Memphis knew about Dr. Nick. They led her upstairs, past rooms with doors that stayed closed, past photographs of a younger Elvis, each one seeming to watch her climb towards something she could not yet understand. The carpet absorbed their footsteps. The house held its breath. Outside the master bedroom, Vernon stopped. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. He explained that Elvis needed round-the-clock care, that touring had taken its toll, that they needed someone who could work 11 at night to 7 in the morning. The lonely hours, he called them, the dangerous hours. Before she could respond, the bedroom door opened. Elvis Presley stood there, but not the Elvis from the photographs lining the hallway. This man looked like someone had drawn Elvis from memory and gotten the proportions wrong, too thin in places that should be full, too swollen in places that should be sharp. He wore a robe that probably cost more than her car, but underneath she could see the telltale signs, the bruising on his arms, the slight tremor in his hands, the careful way he held himself, like movement itself caused pain. His first words to her were not hello or welcome. They were a warning. They dress me up like a turkey for Thanksgiving out there, make me look golden and perfect for everyone to consume, but you are going to see the picked over bones. You sure you want this job? She said yes without hesitation, not because she needed the work, because something in his eyes looked like every patient she had ever lost. the ones who knew before the tests came back, the ones who had already started saying goodbye. That first night, Elvis showed her the bathroom. Not just any bathroom, a bathroom that had been converted into something else. Medical equipment hidden behind decorative screens, an oxygen tank disguised as a plant stand, prescription bottles arranged like a pharmacy, each one labeled with a different name, none of them Elvis. He explained the system: red pills at certain times, blue at others, white ones when the pain got too bad, injections when the pills stopped working, everything documented in a ledger he kept locked in a drawer, everything precise, everything planned. But the most disturbing discovery came 3 nights into the job. Marion found Elvis in his study at 3 in the morning, writing letters. The addressee made her blood run cold. Gladys Presley, his mother, dead since 1958. He wrote to her every night, detailed letters about his day, about his health, about how tired he felt. In one letter she glimpsed before he noticed her standing there, she saw a line that would stay with her forever. "Mama, I am coming to see you real soon. Just got a few more shows to do, then I can rest." The truth about Elvis Presley was not that he was dying. Anyone could see that. The truth was that he had been preparing for it, orchestrating it, like a concert where he was both the performer and the audience. 2 weeks into the job, something shifted. Elvis started trusting her, started talking during those long hours between midnight and dawn, not about music or movies or the screaming fans, about fear, about a body that had betrayed him, about promises he made that he could not keep, about debts that could not be paid with money. One night in early February, he asked her to sit with him, not as a nurse, as a witness. He had something to tell her, something he had not told anyone, something about why he really needed a nurse who could keep secrets. The medication was not killing him, it was keeping him alive, barely, fighting something nobody else knew about, something that had been happening for years, something that involved people she would recognize, people who smiled in all the photographs downstairs. Then Elvis asked her the question that would define the rest of her life, the question that would keep her awake for 40 years, not whether she could save him, whether she could let him go, whether she could wait exactly 45 minutes before calling for help if she found him in distress. 45 minutes, long enough for certain things to become irreversible, long enough for a man to find the peace he had been searching for since his mother died. He needed her to promise, and God help her, looking into those exhausted eyes, she did. March brought something different to Graceland. The walls started listening, or maybe Elvis started believing they could hear. Marion would find him at 3 in the morning, standing in front of the full-length mirror in his bedroom, having conversations with someone who was not there, not rambling, not confused, full conversations with pauses for responses only he could hear. She learned quickly who he was talking to: Jesse, his twin brother who died at birth, the brother who never got to live. Jesse would have been better at this, Elvis would say to the mirror. He would have known when to stop, when to walk away. I took his chance at life, and look what I did with it. These conversations happened every night between 2 and 4 in the morning, always the same time. Like Jesse had an appointment to keep. Elvis would apologize for stealing his brother's life, for being the twin who survived, for becoming everything their mother wanted Jesse to be. The medication routine had become something darker than medical necessity. Elvis had given each pill a purpose beyond its prescription. Red capsules at midnight were not for pain. They were to stop the dreams where his mother asked why he had not joined her yet. Blue tablets at 2 in the morning were not for anxiety. They were to forget who he had become. White pills at 4 were not stimulants. They were to remember why he could not leave, not yet. Marion started keeping journals, secret ones that violated every ethical principle she had sworn to uphold. But watching Elvis Presley dissolve into something unrecognizable felt like witnessing history disappear. Someone needed to document what was really happening in those hours when Memphis slept. Someone needed to remember the truth before it got buried under headlines and speculation. The touring continued despite his condition. April meant Louisville, Detroit, Toledo, cities that blurred together in a haze of hotel rooms and backstage oxygen tanks. Marion traveled with him now, part of an inner circle that grew smaller each week as Elvis trusted fewer people. She watched him transform from dying man to superstar in the space of an injection, cortisone directly into his throat so he could sing, dexedrine to keep him upright, morphine to make him not care that his body was failing. Backstage before each show, the ritual never changed. Elvis would look at himself in the mirror, but not at his own reflection, through it, past it, speaking to Jesse again, "Just a few more, brother, just a few more shows, and then I can stop pretending." The audience never knew. How could they? The lights, the scarves, the controlled movements that looked like choreography, but were really just a man trying not to fall down. They screamed for Elvis Presley, but they were watching someone else. Someone performing the memory of who Elvis used to be. April 21st, in Louisville, changed everything. The show started normally. Elvis took the stage in a white jumpsuit that had been altered 3 times that week to hide his fluctuating weight. His voice still had power, even if his body did not. But halfway through Can't Help Falling in Love, something shifted. Marion watched from the wings as his eyes rolled back. His hand dropped from the microphone. For 47 seconds, Elvis Presley was clinically dead, standing upright, still moving his lips to the words, but dead. The audience thought it was part of the show, some kind of emotional performance art. They kept screaming, kept reaching for him as his body went through the motions of being Elvis while his heart stopped beating. Marion rushed on stage as the lights dimmed for what the audience thought was dramatic effect. She administered CPR behind a curtain of backup singers while the band played louder to cover the sound of her counting compressions. The needle of adrenaline went directly into his heart, modern medicine forcing him back into a body that had tried to leave. His first words when consciousness returned were not relief or gratitude. They were accusation. "Why did you bring me back?" Not a question, an indictment. The show continued. Elvis walked back into the spotlight, and the audience erupted. They had no idea they had just watched a resurrection. He finished the set, signed autographs, posed for pictures. Only Marion saw the tears running down his face the entire time, hidden by stage sweat and theatrical lighting. That night in the hotel, Elvis showed her something that changed her understanding of everything. A collection of tape recorders hidden in a guitar case, each one labeled with a date, each one containing what he called confessions. She listened to one recording while Elvis sat on the bed, staring at nothing. His voice on the tape sounded different, younger, angrier, talking about his manager, Colonel Parker, about contracts he never understood, about money disappearing, about medications appearing in his room that he never requested, about how his mother's death was not what everyone believed. She knew something, the recorded Elvis said. "Mama knew something about the colonel that she was going to tell me. Then suddenly she got sick. Real sudden, real specific. The kind of sick that happens when someone wants you quiet." The real Elvis, the one sitting on the hotel bed in 1977, finally spoke. "I have been recording everything for 3 years, every conversation, every threat, every pill they gave me that did not match what the bottle said. But who would believe Elvis Presley, the drug addict, the fallen star, the cautionary tale?" Maury recordings revealed a systematic destruction that went beyond exploitation. Parker had been medicating Elvis without his knowledge since 1969, using different doctors who did not communicate, creating dependencies that did not need to exist, making Elvis need the very people who were destroying him. But the most devastating recording was recent, from February. Elvis had gone to a private doctor in California, paid cash, used a fake name. The tests confirmed what he had suspected. His heart was failing, genetic condition, exactly what killed his mother, but accelerated by years of medications he never needed. Medications that were slowly poisoning him while looking like treatment. "I cannot prove it without destroying everything," Elvis told Marion that night in Louisville. "The colonel owns percentages of everything. If I die wrong, Lisa Marie gets nothing. Priscilla gets nothing. Everyone who depends on Elvis Presley Enterprises gets nothing. But if I die right, if I die the way a rock star is supposed to die, then they are protected. The insurance pays. The estate continues. The colonel cannot touch what death makes sacred." He was not trying to die, Marion realized. He was trying to disappear in a way that saved everyone except himself. May brought worse revelations. Elvis started forgetting things, not just details. Entire days, he would ask Marion why his mother had not visited. When she reminded him Gladys had been dead for 19 years, he would cry like hearing it for the first time. Then an hour later, perfect clarity would return and he would remember everything, including the fact that he had forgotten. "It is the pills," he said one night, "but not the ones you think. The Colonel has been having my food dosed. I can taste it now, metallic, like pennies in my mouth. But if I stop eating, they will hospitalize me, and in a hospital, they can do whatever they want." The tour continued through June and July, each show a masterpiece of deception. Elvis would collapse between songs, hidden by costume changes, oxygen masks behind curtains, injections in bathroom stalls. The audience saw a legend. The crew saw a ghost. One night in Omaha, Elvis did something that terrified Marion more than any medical crisis. He gave away his jewelry, not the stage pieces, the real ones, things his mother had given him. He handed them to strangers on the crew, people whose names he barely knew. When she asked why, his answer chilled her. "Dead men do not need jewelry, and I need to practice being dead." By late July, Elvis had stopped fighting the medication, stopped questioning the pills, stopped trying to figure out which ones were medicine and which ones were poison. He had made a decision. Marion could see it in his eyes, the same look she had seen in terminal patients who had chosen to stop treatment. But Elvis had one more secret to share, one more recording he had made. This one was different, not about the Colonel or the pills or his mother. This one was about Marion, about what he needed her to do, about why he had really hired a nurse who could keep secrets. He pressed play on the recorder. Her own voice filled the room, from a conversation she did not remember having, promising things she would never promise, agreeing to things that were not possible. The recording had been edited, spliced together from dozens of conversations to create confessions that never happened. "Insurance," Elvis said, "not against you, for you. If you do what I need you to do, they will come after you. But this recording will protect you, make you look like another victim of Elvis Presley's manipulation. The nurse he fooled, the professional he corrupted, you will be blameless." The point of no return was not a moment, it was a realization. Elvis had been planning his ending for months. Every detail, every contingency, every person who might be hurt had been protected, except himself. He handed her an envelope, thick, sealed with wax like something from another century. "Open this in 40 years, not before. On August 16, 2017, everything you need to know is inside, everything you need to prove, but not until the world is ready to forgive me for what I am about to do." July 1977 arrived like a disease that had been incubating for months. Elvis stopped recognizing people he had known for years, not forgetting their names, forgetting they were real. The paranoia started with whispers. Elvis would grab Marion's arm at 4 in the morning, pull her close enough that she could smell the sickness on his breath. "You work for him? The Colonel sent you. You are here to make sure I die on schedule." 10 minutes later, he would apologize. 10 minutes after that, the accusation would return. Vernon tried to intervene. Dr. Nick increased medications. Nothing helped, because the paranoia was not madness. Elvis was right about some of it. People were watching, recording, waiting, just not the people he thought. One night, Marion found Elvis in the kitchen at Graceland, every knife laid out on the counter. He was not threatening anyone. He was counting them, making sure the number matched what he remembered. "They move things," he said, "change things, make me think I am losing my mind so nobody will believe me when I tell the truth." The truth was simpler and worse than conspiracy. His brain was dying. Lack of oxygen from his failing heart was creating gaps that paranoia rushed to fill. Medical fact became psychological horror. Each forgotten moment turned into evidence of betrayal. Then came the night he called her Gladys. Not a slip of the tongue, complete transformation. Elvis looked at Marion and saw his dead mother, talked to her about things that happened in 1957, asked her to make his favorite sandwich the way she did when he was 19, begged her not to leave him alone with the Colonel. For 3 hours, Elvis lived in a world where his mother had never died, where the last 20 years had not happened, where he was still young and everything was still possible. Marion played along because the alternative was watching him shatter completely. She held his hand while he cried about a recording session that went badly 2 decades ago. She nodded when he promised to be more careful with money they had already lost. When clarity returned, Elvis remembered everything he had said, everything he had revealed. The look in his eyes was not embarrassment, it was envy. For 3 hours, he had been in a world where the worst things had not happened yet. "She is the lucky one," he said. "Mama got to leave before seeing what I became." The medical tests Marion had been secretly conducting confirmed what Elvis already knew. His heart was operating at 30% capacity, same genetic defect that killed Gladys. But where hers had progressed naturally over years, his had been accelerated. The medications he had been given for other conditions had attacked his heart while pretending to heal everything else. "Murdered in slow motion," Elvis said when she showed him the results. "But try explaining that to anyone. Try telling them Elvis Presley was poisoned by his own manager over 8 years. They will say I am making excuses, looking for someone else to blame." He was right. Every doctor who examined him saw what they expected to see: overweight entertainer, drug dependence, lifestyle consequences. Nobody looked for poisoning because nobody poisons people that slowly, that carefully, that profitably. Elvis had been preparing his exit since learning the truth in February. Not suicide, something more complex. He called it correction, making his death mean something by controlling how it happened. The funeral instructions were detailed to the point of obsession: which songs would play, who would stand where, what words would be said. He had been visiting Forest Hill Cemetery at 3 in the morning, standing at his mother's grave, measuring the space beside her, not planning to die, planning to finally be somewhere the Colonel could not reach. "Death is the only contract Parker cannot renegotiate," Elvis said one night while showing Marion photographs of different caskets. "The only performance where I control the entire show." August 1st changed everything. Elvis handed Marion the envelope, heavier than paper should be, sealed with red wax that looked like blood in the lamplight. 40 years, he said. August 16th, 2017, not a day before, promise me. Inside that envelope, she would later discover, was his real will, not the legal one filed with lawyers, the spiritual one. Instructions for revealing the truth when enough time had passed for anger to become understanding, when the people who needed protection were beyond Parker's reach, when Lisa Marie was old enough to handle knowing her father chose to leave rather than let the poison take him slowly. That envelope also contained recordings: Parker admitting to the medication scheme, doctors discussing dosages designed to create dependency, financial records showing money disappearing into accounts Elvis never opened, evidence that would destroy reputations, end careers, rewrite history, but only if revealed at the right time, only when the world was ready to see Elvis as victim instead of cautionary tale. The first week of August, Elvis stopped taking most of his medications. The withdrawal should have killed him. Instead, he became lucid, clear in a way Marion had not seen since January. The paranoia dissolved. The confusion lifted. For a few days, Elvis Presley returned. He spent those days giving things away, not randomly, specifically. Each item went to someone who needed to remember him differently than the world would. His Bible to the cook, who prayed for him every morning. His favorite ring to the gate guard, who never asked for autographs. His guitar to a backup singer whose daughter needed surgery. Nobody questioned it. Everyone assumed Elvis was being generous. Nobody recognized it as estate planning by a man who knew the will would be contested. August 14th was the last day Marion saw Elvis truly present, truly himself. They sat in his bedroom at 2 in the morning, no pills between them, no recordings running, no paranoid checks of the walls for listening devices. Just two people who had shared 6 months of dying together. "I have been dead since 1958, Elvis said. "The day Mama died, she took the real Elvis with her. Everything since then has been performance, pretending to be the son she wanted, the star everyone needed, the money machine Parker created, but never actually me. He talked about the music he wished he had made, the life he should have lived, the simple existence that fame had made impossible, how he envied his stillborn twin who never had to become anything for anyone. Jesse got the better deal, he said, died before disappointment. I have been dying after it, slowly, publicly, profitably. The morning of August 15th, Elvis showed Marion pill bottles she had never seen before, prescriptions filled under names she did not recognize, medications he was allergic to, deadly allergic, the kind of allergy that appears in medical records that every doctor knows about, that nobody would ever prescribe. Parker does not know I know, Elvis said, about the allergy, about these pills, about what happens if I take them. She understood then. Elvis had not been planning suicide. He had been planning plausible deniability, death that looked like accident, overdose that was actually allergic reaction, the perfect ending that would protect everyone while destroying only him. You are going to let me, he said, not a question, a statement of fact, because you understand that sometimes the only power someone has is choosing how their story ends. That night, August 15th, at 11:30, Elvis dismissed her, first time in 6 months, told her to go home, get some rest, take a night off. Some things a man has to do alone, he said. She knew what he meant, knew what would happen, knew she should stay, should fight, should call for help. Instead, she packed her medical bag, took her journals, left the recordings he had given her for safekeeping. At the door, Elvis stopped her one last time, not to say goodbye, to remind her of the promise, 40 years, August 16, 2017, the envelope, the truth, the real story of how Elvis Presley had to die to escape being murdered. They will make me a cautionary tale, he said. Let them, for 40 years, let them tell their version, then tell them mine. She left Graceland at 11:45. By the time she reached her car, Elvis had already taken the pills, the ones he was allergic to, the ones that would make his death look like every other musician who flew too close to the sun, the ones that would ensure his daughter inherited everything while his killer inherited nothing. 3 hours later, Ginger Alden would find him. The official story would begin, the legend would replace the man, and Marion Koch would start counting down 40 years, carrying the weight of knowing Elvis Presley did not die. He escaped. 40 years pass like a held breath. August 16, 2017 arrives with the weight of a promise that has shaped an entire life. Marion Koch, now 78 years old, sits in her Memphis apartment with an envelope that has traveled with her through 4 moves, 2 marriages, and countless nights when she almost opened it early. The red wax seal remains unbroken. Elvis trusted her to wait. She waited. Inside the envelope, 3 things that rewrite history. First, medical records from 1969 through 1977, not the official ones, the real ones. Blood tests Elvis paid for secretly, hair samples analyzed in laboratories that did not know whose they were, results that show massive levels of heavy metals, mercury, lead, thallium, the kind of poisoning that takes years, the kind that mimics other conditions, the kind that makes a person look like they are destroying themselves with excess, when really they are being destroyed by someone else. The records show something else. Elvis knew by 1975, had known for 2 years before Marion ever met him. Every pill he took after that was not addiction. It was counteraction, trying to stay alive long enough to figure out who was killing him and why. Second, a cassette tape labeled, "For Lisa Marie, When the World is Ready." On it, Elvis speaks directly to his daughter, not the slurred speech of his final years. Clear, purposeful, recorded in February 1977 when he learned the truth about everything. "Baby girl," the recording begins, "by the time you hear this, you will have lived longer without me than with me. That was necessary, not wanted, but necessary. There are people who would have hurt you to control me. Leaving was the only way to protect you from becoming leverage in a game you never chose to play." The recording continues for 47 minutes. Elvis explains the slow poisoning, names the doctors involved, details the financial schemes that would have left his family bankrupt if he had died naturally. But most importantly, he explains why he chose to make his death look like an overdose. Everyone will say I was weak. Let them. Weakness does not require investigation. Weakness does not have victims except the weak person. If I die weak, you live free. That is a trade any father would make. Third, documents that should not exist. Contracts between Colonel Parker and pharmaceutical companies. Agreements to test experimental medications on Elvis without his knowledge. Payment records for doctors who never treated Elvis directly but prescribed medications that Parker would add to Elvis's regimen. A paper trail of medical murder designed to look like medical care. But the most damaging document is a letter, written by Gladys Presley 3 days before she died, hidden in a safety deposit box that Elvis found only after her death. In it, she warns Elvis that Parker is not who he claims to be, that she hired a private investigator who discovered Parker's real identity, that the man controlling Elvis's career is wanted for murder in Holland under a different name. Gladys died before she could tell Elvis in person. Her death, the documents suggest, was not natural, same heavy metal poisoning that would later appear in Elvis, just faster, more concentrated, the kind of dose given to someone who needs to be silenced immediately. Elvis carried this knowledge for 19 years, unable to prove it, unable to escape it. Parker had structured every contract to destroy Elvis financially if he tried to leave. But more importantly, Parker had made it clear that Priscilla and Lisa Marie would suffer if Elvis ever spoke the truth. So Elvis did the only thing he could do. He gathered evidence. He documented everything. And he planned an exit that would look like his fault while actually being his final act of rebellion. Marion understands now why Elvis made her wait 40 years. Parker died in 1997. 20 years had to pass after that for his associates to die or become irrelevant, for the people who profited from Elvis's destruction to no longer have power to silence the truth. But there is more to the story, something Marion discovered on her own. She was not the only nurse. There were 3 others, each working different shifts, each carrying pieces of the puzzle, each given envelopes to open on specific dates. Together, they form a complete picture of Elvis's final year, a man not spiraling into addiction, but investigating his own murder, not losing control, but taking it back in the only way left to him. The other nurses have similar stories, secret recordings, hidden documents, evidence that Elvis spent his last year not as a victim, but as a detective solving his own death before it happened. One nurse has photographs Elvis took of pills, proving they did not match what the bottles claimed. Another has recordings of Parker discussing increasing the dose with doctors who never examined Elvis. The third has financial records showing millions of dollars diverted from Elvis's accounts into pharmaceutical research funds that Parker controlled. Together, these 4 women hold proof that the king of rock and roll was assassinated in slow motion by the man who claimed to be protecting him. But perhaps the most heartbreaking discovery is a series of letters Elvis wrote but never sent. Letters to his fans, apologies for disappointing them, explanations they would never receive. In one letter, dated August 1, 1977, he writes, "You loved someone who did not exist. Elvis Presley was a character Colonel Parker created, and I performed. The real me died with my mother in 1958. Everything after that was just good acting. I hope someday you can forgive me for not being strong enough to show you who I really was." The truth about Elvis Presley is not that fame destroyed him, not that drugs consumed him. The truth is that he was murdered by someone he trusted, and he knew it, and he chose to die on his own terms rather than give his killer the satisfaction of watching him deteriorate naturally. Every documentary about Elvis focuses on the tragedy of his death. None of them know it was actually his victory. He denied Parker the final years of profit, protected his family from poverty, preserved his daughter's inheritance, and left enough evidence to eventually expose the truth. Elvis Presley did not die from weakness. He died from courage. The courage to make his death look like failure so his daughter could succeed. The courage to be remembered as a cautionary tale so the real villains would never be investigated. The courage to trust 4 nurses with a secret that would take 40 years to reveal. When people visit Graceland now, they see the mansion of a man who had everything and lost it all. What they do not see is the chess game Elvis played with his own life as the final piece, a game where losing was the only way to win. The grave beside his mother's at Forest Hill holds more than Elvis's body. It holds the truth he could not speak while alive. That sometimes the only way to escape a prison is to make everyone think you destroyed yourself trying. Lisa Marie received her father's message as instructed. Her response remains private, but those close to her say she finally understands why her father seemed so sad in those final years. Not because he was dying, because he could not tell her he was saving her. The pharmaceutical companies named in Elvis's documents have long since merged or disbanded. The doctors have died. The evidence, while compelling, cannot prosecute ghosts, but it can do something else. It can restore dignity to a man who sacrificed his to protect everyone else. The real Elvis Presley was not the bloated figure in the white jumpsuit, not the slurred voice in the final concerts. The real Elvis was the detective gathering evidence of his own murder, the father planning his daughter's protection, the son who chose to join his mother rather than let his killer profit from his suffering. That is the Elvis that Marion Koch wants the world to remember, not the king who fell, the man who chose how to land. The envelope remains on her table, empty now but somehow heavier, 40 years of silence finally broken, 40 years of guilt finally explained. Elvis did not ask her to save him that night because he was already saved. He had chosen his ending, written it, directed it, performed it perfectly. The world got the story it expected. Elvis got the ending he planned. And somewhere, perhaps, Gladys Presley finally has her son back, free from the prison that fame and Colonel Parker built around him. Do you believe Elvis Presley was murdered by the one person he trusted most, or did fame itself become the poison no medicine could cure? After 40 years of silence, his nurse needs to know if revealing this truth brings peace or just more questions, because some secrets once told cannot be untold, and some truths once known change everything we thought we understood about how legends really die. Share your thoughts below.